This week on Motoworld, America versus the world at Motocross Donations. The day-long desert torture, the 24 hours of Willow Springs. And the National Enduro Championship is decided in Iowa. All this and much more next on Motoworld.
Motoworld is brought to you by new Coors Extra Gold Craft in bottles and cans. The one with a full tilt taste. Honda, the leader in on and off-road fun. Honda, come ride with us. Suzuki Motorcycles. See your dealer for great financing on a Suzuki. The ride you've been waiting for. And by Castrol, motor oil engineered for today's smaller, higher revving engines.
Welcome to Motoworld. First on today's show, a history lesson. In 1981, 4 Americans traveled to Germany to compete in Motocross Donations. It was the first real organized American effort, and quite frankly, the Americans were not expected to do better than 3rd or 4th. But Chuck's son, Dan Laporte, Donnie Hansen, and Johnny O'Mara beat the odds and the Europeans. Now let's look at this year's event. Motocross Donations is considered one of the premier events in all of motocross. It pits the best riders in the world against each other in team competition. On the track, the racing is serious. Off the track, the atmosphere is laid back. Huge crowds attend the event looking for fun and the best motocross in the world. Each year since 1981, American riders have competed in and won this prestigious event. On this year's team was 125cc rider Mike Kiedrowski on the left, 250 rider Jeff Stanton in the middle, and riding the 500 class, Jeff Ward. The 3 American aces went head-to-head against teams from 22 countries. In Moto number 1, Ward, rider number 1, opened the U.S. title defense with a spectacular start. Watch as the gate drops and Ward is almost squeezed from contention. Now watch as the Kawasaki rider weaves his way through the field to take the lead from number 40, Australian Jeff Leask. Leask eventually finished 3rd as the moto boiled down to a battle between Ward and number 58, 1989 500cc world champion David Thorpe from Great Britain. Mixed in with the 500 class in Moto number 1 were the 125s. For the U.S., Mike Kiedrowski, who started in the 2nd row, was working his way through the pack. When you're aboard a 125 and half the field is on 500s, that's no simple task.
You know, you get really flustered when you come out of a turn and there's a straight and then they pass you, and then you come in the turn, you're right on them, and you either got to block them, push them out or something, and it kind of makes you a little bit mad when they pass you back or something.
Mike Kiedrowski went on to finish 9th overall and win the 125 class. Jeff Ward made it 2 for 2 with the Moto and 500cc class win. The 125s, along with the 250s, competed in Moto number 2, and this time, Jeff Stanton was the star. The U.S. rider jumped to an early lead and left the field in his dust. In Motocross Donations, each rider races a pair of motos for points. Classes are mixed together on the track, but are separated for scoring purposes. Only the best 4 scores turned in by a team count. In the 2nd moto, Stanton won the 250 class, and Kiedrowski wrapped up the title for the U.S. team for the 9th consecutive year by finishing 2nd among the 125. The 3rd and final moto had no bearing on the championship, but just for the record, Jeff Stanton won it, while Jeff Ward recovered from a crash to finish 8th. Flanking the victorious Americans are on the left of your screen, the 2nd-place Italian team, and on the right, Great Britain, who finished 3rd.
Team Suzuki presents the Motoworld Suzuki Event Calendar. A look at some of the major events coming up in the world of motorcycles and ATVs.
As the National Championship Motocross Series winds down, Budds Creek, Maryland will play host to Round 5 on October 8th. The Suzuki National Cup Series finale takes place on November 5th in Braselton, Georgia. This year's event should be even more competitive with the increased contingency from American Suzuki. Sharing the billing with the Suzuki Cup races will be the Wira Grand National and the final round of the Wira Endurance Championship. It should be a great weekend of racing.
Still to come on Motoworld. Find out what you could be riding in 1990 as we take an exclusive behind-the-scenes look at the Yamaha Dealer Convention. We'll talk to a California entrepreneur who is a successful businessman and one of the major forces in American road racing. And coming up next, National Championship Enduro competition from Iowa. Keep it tuned to TNN. Welcome back to Motoworld. Art Ekman has joined me on the set for Enduro competition. And Art, I understand that although the series is not over, that round 10 in Iowa decided the championship.
That's right, Larry. With 2 rounds remaining in the series, Randy Hawkins has successfully defended his national title. The factory Suzuki rider took the overall win in Iowa, riding with an injured shoulder. Motoworld cameras followed the South Carolina rider through the championship deciding event from start to finish.
For a first-timer at an Enduro, the first thing you notice during the pre-race preparations are a lot of sleepy expressions. Enduro competition has an early morning call. Defending national champion Randy Hawkins has been answering those early morning calls since he was 16. On this day, however, the 23-year-old South Carolina rider had a painful burden to overcome in addition to the impending competition. A nagging rotator cuff injury resurfaced and hampered his race morning routine. An ice bag was wedged underneath his jersey in hopes of offering some relief. Right before race time, liniment was rubbed in the shoulder. A brace was fitted to restrict movement and offer support. Enduros are very similar to car rallies. You race the clock, your competitors, the terrain, and yourself. The early portions of the predetermined course consisted of grassy Iowa plains. Most riders sought out wide open spaces, while others decided to go through obstacles to gain time. Later in the Enduro, the course proved to be a little more challenging. Water holes turned quickly into deep creeks. And how about this devilish challenge thrown at the competitors by race organizers? Now that's a tight fit. After the first loop, Hawkins and company had a chance to rest while support personnel worked on the bikes. During the break, Hawkins applied some more ice as the shoulder was acting up. Nevertheless, Hawkins continued through the Enduro and finished in typical Hawkins fashion in first place. Riding in pain, Randy Hawkins was the overall winner on the day, and more importantly, clinched his second consecutive AMA National Enduro Championship.
Today it was a good course, you know. It was wet, and then in dry in sections, we, you know, it was a little bit of everything, and the guys did a really good job, great job, because they had so much rain they had to cut out some stuff, so they had to work extra hard Saturday to prepare for the race, but they did an excellent job, and the race was great.
For his championship ride, Randy Hawkins is our Castrol Rider of the Week. The Team Suzuki rider will receive a custom jacket and plaque for being named Castrol Rider of the Week.
From the Enduro Championship, let's check in on the AMA's Grand National Dirt Track Championship. Now, the last time I looked, reigning champion Scott Parker was well on his way to defending his crown. Is he still on track? Chris Larson fills us in.
Heading into round 14 of the AMA Camel Pro Dirt Track National Championship Series, the Syracuse Mile, defending champ Scott Parker held a 23-point lead over Harley teammate Chris Carr. Parker had won all 7 of the mile dirt track events held this season and was favored to make it 8 here in New York. With the main event underway, though, the attention of the crowd was focused not on number 1, but on number 9, the winningest rider in the history of the sport, 3-time Grand National champ Jay Springsteen. Springer has not won a national since the Syracuse event back in 1985. But here he was, battling for the lead with Parker, number 1, Dan Ingram, 31, and Steve Moorhead, number 42. Unfortunately for Springer, in the midst of his strongest ride this season, and a few seconds after taking the lead, the red flag came out, halting the race. It had started to rain on the 4th lap, and by lap 7, when the race was halted, the track was too slippery to continue. The officials huddled, and referee Duke Ologies made the decision. The Syracuse Mile was called on account of rain, and officially no points or national honors were earned. Springsteen was awarded first place money based on winning the fastest heat race earlier in the day.
I told Duke, I said, I'd rather have the points, you can keep the money. I said, I just wanted him to call it a national, so it'll be 41 nationals for me.
From Syracuse, the tour moved west to San Jose, and so did the rain. This time it poured prior to the event, leaving the track a virtual quagmire. The San Jose Mile has been rescheduled for October 1st and is one of 3 events remaining on the dirt track schedule. Reporting from Motoworld, this is Chris Larson.
When Motoworld continues, we'll head out to California for endurance road racing, and we'll profile race team owner John Lassick. Keep it tuned to TNN.
Motoworld is brought to you in part by Coors Extra Gold, the beer with a full tilt taste. Extra Gold, for people who really like to drink beer.
Welcome back to Moto World. One of the premier events on the U.S. road racing calendar is WERA's 24-hour endurance race staged in the California desert at Willow Springs Raceway. This year's event attracted one of the finest fields since the series' inception. Who came out on top? Here's Dennis Torres with a story.
There were a lot of questions lingering in the pits and paddock area prior to the twice around-the-clock grind. The first of which was, could the number 25 Vance and Hines entry take a fifth straight Willow Springs 24-hour victory? On hand to stop the V&H Suzuki, number 30, Team RC30. More on this effort a little later. Reigning series champs, the Human Race Team number 1, and perennial series champs, number 2, Team Suzuki. In 24 hours, the top teams would race over 2,000 miles on the 9-turn, 2.5-mile course. Early on, championship rivals, number 1, the Human Race Team, and Team Suzuki locked horns. Earlier in the year, the Humans rode their number 1 Yamaha FZR 1000 to victory in the other WERA 24-hour event in Nelson Ledges, Ohio. It would be a major coup if they could make it 2 for 2 in '89. As dusk fell, the bikes and the desert created some unique, dramatic scenes. Number 30 Team RC30 led at that point. Later that evening, though, this unique entry fell by the wayside after a major off-road excursion. Entered by a group of American Honda employees, the virtually stock 750cc Honda was more than a match for the bigger leader machines. The night aspect of a 24-hour contest is unique. At Willow, racing under the stars gave the appearance of a small town with some pretty fast traffic. After 2 red flags, a multitude of problems on the track and in the pits, the 5-rider Human Race Team took the checkered flag and the unofficial title as kings of 24-hour enduros, at least for 1989 anyway.
It feels great, especially after last year. We almost had the race in the bag, well, we did last year, and with an hour to go, the motor melted down on us, so this is a sweet revenge for us.
Here are the final overall results. Vance and Hines ended up second, failing to garner their 5th straight win, while Team Suzuki finished in 3rd. Reporting for Motoworld, this is Dennis Torres.
Road racing is also the topic of this week's Coors Behind the Scenes segment. The subject, though, is not a race, a rider, or a track. As Mark McKay reports, this story is about a special individual who is a plumber by trade, race team owner by choice.
Running Springs, California is not a household name when it comes to motorcycle road racing fans, but maybe it should be. The man with the red shorts heading into the local coffee shop is John Lassick. That's Lassick as in Lassick Racing. In this gray house, John and his family run a very successful plumbing business and a very successful racing team. Let's look at the numbers. In only its 2nd year in the Castrol 250 Grand Prix Series, Lassick Racing has consistently run at the front. In 1988, Lassick Racing was the only team other than the powerful Kenny Roberts-sponsored effort to win a national. And in 1989, they were the only team to make it to the winner's circle in every race. Not only do Lassick's bikes run well, they look good too. Go over to the garage and you'll find meticulous professional surroundings. Definitely first-rate racing cuisine. So who is John Lassick and how did he get started? First and foremost, he's an enthusiast. Second, he was a rider until fate intervened.
I had a bad accident in '74 where I broke my leg very badly, and what I did was then instead of racing, I had to start working on the bikes for my friends to keep in the competition. And I've always enjoyed working on 2-strokes because you get the satisfaction of doing something and get a direct result from it. Whereas a 4-stroke, you can buy pistons, buy cams, put the things in, and someone else has done your work for you.
He gets involved in all the work. You know, at various times this year we've had 3 guys on the team and he's been involved. All 3 guys setting their bikes up. Yeah, he's working 14 hours a day flat out.
Juggling a family, a plumbing business, and a racing team is definitely a handful. But John Lassick has made it work, although a sponsor would sure make things a lot easier. If there are any listening, it's Lassick Racing, Running Springs, California. Look in the phone book under Plumbing and Racer. Reporting for Motoworld, this is Mark McKay.
When Motoworld continues, we'll bring you a special video segment from the recent Yamaha Dealer Convention and tell you who came out on top in the 1989 Road Racing World Championship. We'll be right back. Welcome back. For most of us, autumn signals the winding down of the motorcycle season. For motorcycle dealers, though, autumn marks the beginning of the motorcycle season. The reason is simple. The fall of the year is when the major motorcycle companies unveil their new models and programs to be introduced to the public in the spring. The Bally Hotel in Reno, Nevada was the gathering point for Yamaha dealers from all over the U.S. They were, of course, wined and dined, but that was just a fringe benefit. The meat of the meeting was the unveiling of Yamaha's product line and marketing strategies as motorcycling rolls into the 90s.
The speech that Ben Watanabe gave today outlined his perception of what the motorcycle industry has been about the last 5 years, some of the problems and some of the things that we have to attack.
The main attack will be aimed at revitalizing the public's sagging interest in motorcycling. To do that, according to Ben Watanabe, Yamaha will return to the basics.
Well, the final goal is a street, but to generate the enthusiasm among the young people, we started from the off-road in the late 60s, so that's why I'm going to start from the off-road again.
One thing that I am impressed with is management's talking back to grassroots, and I am seeing signs of grassroots, which is the RT180 and the RT100, which is showing they're listening to the dealer network.
To get their point across, Yamaha used lavish visual aids combined with product introductions. Olympic gold medalist Tim Daggett was on hand to deliver a special inspirational message. And Yamaha's message to the public was introduced. Go your own way.
Everybody gets something different out of motorcycles. We sell Rivas and FZRs and dirt bikes and street bikes, and just do your own thing. Yamaha's got about 25 different models, and if you can't find a model to suit your fancy at Yamaha, I don't know what else you can do, but I think that's what go your own way means to the motorcycle customer. It's somewhat of an individualistic type of a sport, and we've got products hopefully to fill all of those needs.
The needs of just about every aspect of motorcycling were addressed at the Yamaha show. For example, racing.
It's going to be an important part in all the categories, whether it's off-road, motocross, road racing, even ATV racing. We're committed to standing behind the product, and one of the ways that we prove that product is on the racetracks of the world.
Or how about ATVs?
I feel upbeat on the ATVs. I think that the industry has grasped this thing, we've wrestled with it, and I think we're on top of it. I'm enthused about it.
Enthusiasm? There was plenty of that at Yamaha's 1990 dealer show. Yamaha! One of the most recognizable dealers on hand at the Yamaha convention was none other than King Kenny Roberts, owner of a Yamaha dealership in Modesto, California. He was also there watching his son, Kenny Roberts Jr., race a YSR Yamaha. Watch the rider decked out in Lucky Strike leathers. Did that look familiar? 14-year-old Kenny Roberts Jr. has raced a YSR 3 times, and he's a 3-time winner. Speaking of winners, Roberts was on his way to Brazil for the final round of the 500cc World Championship. Was the King happy with this year's effort?
I think everything's going real well with the team. We've had a very successful year. We've had one hiccup, but for a second-year guy on the circuit like Wayne, who's still a rookie in my opinion, he's going to be awfully hard to beat in the years to come, and it's up to us now to make a better bike, better tires, and put Wayne just that much farther ahead than he is right now. I think he's done a great job. I think everybody's done a great job. The team's had big success this year. We've turned it around from last year, and next year looks good for us.
Unfortunately for King Kenny and his #1 rider, Wayne Rainey, the GP season ended on a disappointing note. At the season finale in Brazil, Wayne Rainey finished behind Eddie Lawson, thus failing to stop Lawson from regaining his world crown. For Houston native Kevin Schwantz, the win in Brazil marked his 6th win of the season. Ironically, Lawson becomes the first rider to repeat as 500cc world champ since King Kenny's 3 successive titles in 1978, 79, and 80. Here's a look at the final standings. Lawson came on strong in the second half of the schedule after early season teething problems with his Honda. The rumor mill in Brazil has King Kenny switching from Lucky Strike to Marlboro colors for 1990, and it appears to be a foregone conclusion that he has signed John Kosinski for next year. It's still uncertain at this time whether King Kenny will have Kosinski racing 250s or 500s. We'll let you know. Our congratulations go to Eddie Lawson, and with that, we're out of time and out of here. Whatever you do between now and the next time we see you, be sure to keep your wheels on the ground and your feet on the pegs. For all of us here at Motoworld, I'm Larry Myers. We'll see you next week right here on TNN.
Motoworld has been brought to you by Coors Extra Gold, the biggest taste that's happened to beer since they put it in cans. Honda, the leader in on and off-road fun. Honda, come ride with us. Suzuki Motorcycles, see your dealer for great financing on a Suzuki, the ride you've been waiting for. And by Castrol, motor oil engineered for today's smaller, higher revving engines. The executive producer of Motoworld is Lou Seals. Motoworld is a production of Seals Communications Corporation.